Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our podcast on Carbon Capture and Storage Summit. I'm your host today, Dana Bastian. Joining me today is Carbon Capture Magazine's managing editor, Danielle Piekarski. And our special guest today is Kevin Pykkonen, Vice President of Business Development at Carbon America. So thank you both for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, Kevin, you are going to be speaking at the Carbon Capture and Storage Summit on Monday, June 13th. It is a pre-conference at the FEW this year, where I know we're excited to have you. I know Danielle has some questions for you about what we are going to be expecting during your presentation and what will be discussed at the summit. So, Danielle, off to you.
Yeah, so you are covering the permitting process and lessons learned in carbon capture and sequestration. So the first question I had for you is what information and resources are important to have before starting the permitting process?
Well, there's a pretty vast array of technical information required for the permitting of the subsurface sequester facility. And accordingly, whether you have them in-house, like we do at Carbon America, or you're contracting for them from a service provider, you need a pretty wide range of subsurface types of resources available. Geologists, geophysicists, geochemists, and people involved with the design of an appropriate subsurface facility that will satisfy the regulators and therefore allow the project to receive tax credits from the federal government or carbon credits from California or other carbon intensity rewarding regimes for the ethanol industry. It's a pretty wide spectrum, and there's a lot of complexity involved there, so it's important to have people that can stitch that all together as well. From the perspective of an emitter, let's say, that can be a challenging undertaking. We at Carbon America address all of that by managing all of that ourselves. But if you're going to third-party providers, you need somebody that's going to be the quarterback for all this and make sure that the ball doesn't get dropped in handoffs between various service providers.
Great. You actually answered one of my other questions, which was how important is a knowledgeable team when you're applying for a permit? But it sounds like you need to have quite a lot of people who have a good knowledge of what's going on board.
That's correct. And to be speedy and efficient in the gathering of information, which is extensive, necessary to successfully apply for a permit, you need not only people that know how to do it, but you need to spend a bunch of effort and money to go gather that necessary information. These can be things like seismic studies, drilling wells, pulling rock out of the earth and having it analyzed in a laboratory, kind of a wide array of things necessary to successfully receive your permits.
Right. So the second part of your presentation is lessons learned. Do you have any lessons, for example, it doesn't have to be one that's included in your presentation, but that you have learned in the process of permits?
Yes, I think one of the broadest ones is it's important very early on to engage with the necessary regulatory agencies. We've seen people that have just gone and drilled a well without necessarily fully engaging with the EPA. And the risk there is that you spend millions of dollars on drilling, let's say, a first well, and you don't complete the well, as it's called, or construct it satisfactory to the ultimate regulatory requirements. So you just wasted a couple of $1 million. So it's important to engage with the EPA and California regulators, state regulators, and really think comprehensively about the project and be laying the groundwork for them to come along with you in terms of developing an understanding of your project, your end-to-end project. In many cases, you will be learning together. Many state agencies aren't familiar with carbon capture and sequestration, And so, there's a lot of work to do, and it can really delay your project and cause unnecessary rework or, the total loss of expenditure if you haven't been careful along the way. So that's probably one of the broadest ones. Talk to the EPA or your state regulator for those states with primacy in this domain, and to engage with all the necessarily oil and gas regulators that generally govern what happens with wells and those sorts of things in your state, air permit regulators, the whole gamut there.
That's some great advice. So again, we're chatting here with Kevin Pykkonen, Vice President of Business Development at Carbon America. He will be speaking on Monday, June 13th at the Carbon Capture and Storage Summit in Minneapolis. His panel is called Anticipating Air and Well Permit Requirements for Ethanol Producers, Considering CCS Deployment at Their Operations. And he'll be talking about the carbon capture and sequestration permitting process and lessons learned. We appreciate you being here, Kevin. We do like to end our podcasts with a fun question. So, Danielle, I know you've been just dying to ask this question over here.
Yeah, so I saw in your bio that you hold several different patents. And in your opinion, what is the most interesting patent that you hold?
It's a tough question.
Funny question. So one of the patents I hold is for a system that I and a small team, invented for a method to provide propulsion for freight trains in the United States that use natural gas instead of diesel fuel for the fuel. And the patent, we called it a surround and spoof patent. And basically, we took a legacy locomotive control system and spoofed, if you will, the inputs and synthesized outputs so that this legacy locomotive control system was not confused by electricity that was sourced from a new generator. For those that don't know, a locomotive is essentially a generator on wheels. You have an engine that turns a generator, generates electricity, and electric motors that turn the wheels. And so we kind of prevented that system from being confused when we brought in natural gas generated electricity. So that's probably my favorite, I guess, the surround and spoof one.
That's very cool.
It's a very unique product, very niche too. Again, Kevin, we appreciate you being here with us today, and we appreciate learning more about your topic. We look forward to meeting you at the summit. Thanks again for being here, Kevin, Danielle. And I think that's it for now.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it. Look forward to seeing everybody at the FEW.